Good morning, good morning, good morning. Good morning, Burns. How are you this morning? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Grand rising to you, sis. Grand rising to you. I appreciate you being here so early in the morning. um, this morning, we are actually going to be talking on honesty. And I know I'm still sort of doing my controversial series, and I know you may be wondering why honesty is so controversial. Well, because not everyone feels the same way about honesty. Not everyone feels the same way about it. Not everyone feels that, honesty is the best policy. We hear that all the time. Not everyone feels that. and so people debate back and forth a lot of times whether or not they should be honest. And if they do choose to be honest, they struggle with trying to figure out how honest they should be, right? And the hardest thing about that is that often, because we're human, our honesty can vary. We can be completely honest, and that honesty can change from day to day, how we see our truths, what our truths are, what we're honest about. You better be honest. Absolutely. Right. So, I can honestly feel one way one day and honestly feel another way on a different day. Right. So our honesty can vary from person to person. Our honesty can vary from situation to situation. Some people can, we feel like we can be more honest with some people than we can with others. Some people we feel like any bit of honesty we do with them or have with them can potentially hurt their feelings. And, so we're careful about what we say to them. So people struggle with honesty. They struggle with honesty. We worry about the outcome. We worry about people's reactions. We worry about all sorts of stuff. So honesty can be very, very stressful for people. Good morning, Levi. How are you? Good to see you this morning. Welcome in, Random Things. Hello, stepping in for a bit to gotta go to work. I appreciate you, Random Things. Thank you so much for hitting that thumbs up and popping in for a minute and saying good morning. I hope you have a phenomenal day at work today. So I appreciate you being here and giving me just even a little bit of time. So, we struggle, like I say, with honesty from person to person and whether or not we do. So we say things like we want people to be honest, we want people to be honest with us. But then when people are honest with us, they get, a lot of times we'll find ourselves getting angry. We'll find ourselves getting defensive. We'll find ourselves wanting to get revengeful. It's like, well, if they're telling me this and they're going to be honest about this, and I'm going to be honest with them about that, right? So we tend to want to get revengeful, especially if they're being honest to us causes us some hurt and pain, then we tend to want to do the same back to them. So how much honesty do we really want, right? Sometimes we want to be honesty, but we find it hard to take honesty. Good morning, true fan. How are you this morning? Welcome. I appreciate you being here. So we have to try to figure that out. And some people are perfectly good with dishonesty. They're like, no, I don't need all that truth. I'm okay with the little sugar-coated lies or less of the truth, because sometimes, people feel like ignorance is bliss. And the less that they know, the less people are honest about, the less they have to deal with or talk about or work through. So they're perfectly okay with that. So we know if you're a believer that God recommends honesty. There's so many scriptures in the Bible that talks about truth and being honest, and Jesus himself led a life where he was always very honest with people. He never sugarcoated things, and he was always honest in a way that it felt like it could just, even though it seemed like it would be delivered in a loving way, it could hit you, with a ton of bricks. I always admired that about the way Jesus is. He always delivered his honesty, but you might be surprised that a lot of therapists, when I was reading through, a lot of therapists actually recommend honesty 100% of the time in relationships. So not only does, the Bible tell us that we should be honest, but people in the world, therapists in the world who work on who help people work on having honest relationships also say that you should be honest in your relationship. So that leads us to the question, right? How honest should we be? Right? Because we all know that there are different forms of honesty, and we can be brutally honest, and we can be lovingly honest, or we can just be honest. It just depends. So this morning, I just want to talk about a few reasons of why we should be honest. What are some of the benefits of honesty? And then what are some safe ways that we can go about being honest without hurting the person's feelings, right? Well, being able to get ourselves, saying the things that we need to say, getting across the things that we need to say, and hopefully doing it in a way that doesn't just, hurt the other person's feelings too much. One of the first reasons that we should consider being honest is that, number one, it's hard to keep up with lies. Okay, it can be especially if you do it frequently, it can be hard to keep up with lies. They come out very easy, right? Sometimes it's easier to tell the lie than it is to tell the truth, because sometimes if you tell the truth, you're going to have to do more explaining. You may have to, have to say more about it, and all kinds of stuff, right? Sometimes it's just easier to tell the lie, so we can just, sometimes it may just be what the person wants to hear, or we don't want them to ask us any more questions, so we just tell a lie. So it can be very easy to have a lie come out, but it's very hard to keep up with the lie. Sometimes, like I said, if we've told a lot of lies, we forget what we've told, we forget what we said, or we may forget how we said it. And so later when we're talking about it, we may repeat the lie and end up telling it differently. And the person's like, well, wait a minute, I thought you just said this over here. And then we have to go and try to backtrack or tell more lies to try to cover that up. Oh, well, I said this because this, and that, or I forgot to, also tell you this, and that, right? So it just ends up becoming like a flood of lies that continue to pour out of us. However, when we just tell the truth, it's easy to remember because we're not having to make things up, right? So it's easy to tell. It can be easier to tell the truth. It can be easier to keep up with the truth. Second, lies get revealed. Lies get revealed eventually. Oftentimes, sooner or later, the lie is going to get revealed. Sometimes it may be right away. Sometimes a lie may take years to get revealed, right? We've often seen where sometimes it may be many, many years, but lies eventually get revealed. And you can call it God, you can call it divine intervention, or you can call it karma, whatever you want to call it. They tend to always get revealed one way or another. People will tend to find out. So, and let's not even mention how exhausting it is to be constantly worried or be in hopes that people don't find out about the lie, So let's say you've gotten away with keeping a lie for a year or 5 years or even 10 years, but yet you're constantly worried if there's a line of conversation that sort of circles around the lie, and you can feel yourself beginning to get worried, like, oh, I hope this doesn't come up, or I hope they don't bring this up. I hope this person doesn't say this. I hope they don't ask me that, right? Because we're constantly worried about keeping the lie hidden for however long. And that can be very stressful. It can be very mentally exhausting. It can be even overwhelming. And then, God forbid, they actually do, find out about the lie. They actually do get the truth. Then you have to deal with all the drama. You have to deal with all the hurt. You have to deal with all the backlash, all the mistrust, right? So one bad thing sort of leads into another. So that's, another reason not to lie. Another one is the truth frees. The truth shall set you free. Truly, the truth frees. Have you ever noticed that people are often more forgiving of the truth? It amazes me if you notice and look at our society and the trends of the way the world is, it almost doesn't matter how horrible the truth is. People rather hear the truth than hear the lie, right? The ugliest truth can often be more accepting than a beautiful lie. Okay, so because people want to hear the truth, they tend to be more forgiving of the truth. I think that's why a lot of times why we see people get back together when we think, how could y'all be together when this person did this to you, or this situation happened and they did this behind your back, and this and that, and yet you see people still living, working together, and being together. And we struggle with that, and I think it's because they were honest about it. They opened up, they confessed, and so they were able to deal with it, and work through it, and get over it, and stay together. But when you have to deal with a lie, it's hard to deal with the betrayal, right? It's hard to overcome the betrayal. You're constantly grappling with the whys. Why this? Well, why that? And why this? And then their reaction of the lie can be on a whole nother level. People can, well, usually they'll get mad about the truth. They may be hurt behind the truth, but God forbid they find out it's a lie, that you lied, right? That's when we see these extreme, that they say that thin line between love and hate. That's when it quickly moves to hate rather than love. And we see people often end up in life-threatening situations, and having life-threatening encounters with people because they lied. Rather, if they had just told the truth, a lot of times I feel it's often easier for people to accept the truth when they feel that they know that it's the truth, rather than having to try to understand and cope with the lies. Next is it breaks trust. There's broken trust when we lie. When trust is lost in a relationship, it can be very, very hard to get back. And even if you do get it back, it can take a really long time, and it can take longer than you like. And that's a lot of times if you're able to get it back, because sometimes you never get it back. If we're honest, sometimes the trust never comes back. Other times it does, but it may not look the same, right? They may trust you in certain areas, but not the other. Trust built on painful honesty, right? You can almost build trust better on painful honesty than a lie. Okay, because people will tend to leave a relationship with more respect for the person because they told them the truth, than rather the person who constantly lied, who never would tell the truth, who would never just be honest. When we are honest with people, especially when we're in bad relationships, when we're honest with people about, what's wrong, what the situation was, why we did what we did, or why things weren't working, I think it actually improves, it actually improves the integrity of the relationship, right? It gives it some, it kind of gives it feet, and it helps with the process of healing. So you don't tend to struggle with it so much. People can often, you'll often hear people say things like, well, at least they were honest with me, right? Like it could have been a horrible situation, but at least they were honest about it. And they tend to have more respect for that than to say, well, I never knew why. I never understood why the person did this, why they constantly lied, why they could just never tell me the truth. And so people tend to walk around not having closure about the relationship because they always want to know the truth. They just want to know the truth so they can move on, so they can heal, so they can process, what happened, maybe make some adjustments, make some for their next relationship. Think about some things and be able to move forward in the relationships. A lot of times people can't move forward in new relationships because they're still dealing with the lies of the last one. So there's a sense of peace and a sense of healing that comes with honesty. Hey, Harrison, how are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Appreciate you being here this morning. So we're talking about honesty. We're talking about honesty, why we should be honest, and how we can learn to be honest without hurting the person's feelings. So honesty, like I say, it gives closure, and I think it gives people a better opportunity to heal, so they can stop fighting and stop grappling with the lies of a bad of a bad lie. So for sure, make sure so these are just reasons why you want to be honest. Honesty, if you struggle with trust, in your relationship, part of the reason people struggle with trust is because there's not a good foundation of honesty. When people trust you in a relationship, they feel like they can believe in the promises that you make in your relationship. I promise to be this, I promise to be that. And they feel like they can believe in the commitments that you're making. So I'm committed to you. When we say I'm committed to you, I love you, I want to be with you, I want you to, be my spouse, I want to have your children, blah, blah, blah. People feel like they can believe in those those things that we say that come out of our mouths, those sweet nothings, when there is honesty, when there's a foundation of honesty in the relationship, they feel like they can believe it. And then honesty helps us to work through our conflicts faster. If you are fighting in your relationship, if you're constantly, conflicting with each other, if you're just honest about whatever the situation is, you tend to get over the conflict faster because you're not wasting time trying to figure out the truth, like trying to figure out what the real issue is, trying to figure out why the person why this happened. And so you can, if you're honest about your feelings, if you're honest about why things are happening the way they are, who you are, what you like, what you don't like, this and that. Whatever the situation is, if you're honest about it, you can get over the conflict faster and easier because you're not struggling to find the truth. And you can actually focus on what the real issue is and try to overcome it. Okay, so that's just a quick way to shorten a conflict, is by just being honest about it. So how honest? So how do we be honest, and how honest should we be, right? Because that's the real question. It's like, okay, Ruth, I'm ready to be honest, but how honest really can I be? Or how honest should I be? I can tell you, I am a person that used to always be brutally honest with people. It was just my nature. I always felt like, I felt that sense of freedom when I would just be honest with people and tell them the truth. I felt like people were owed the truth, and I felt like I wanted to give it to them, right? And so I used to be brutally honest with people all the time. And needless to say, that didn't always go over well. Sometimes it was real well received, and other times, people would get angry, right? They would get angry about it. How could you say that to me? How could you, tell me that, and this and that? I'm like, well, because I love you, right? And I want you to know the truth. And like I say, it just didn't always go over well. So what I discovered is that not everyone can handle that level of honesty, that brutal honesty. Not everyone can handle that. So what I later realized is that the honesty wasn't the issue, right? The honesty wasn't the issue. The issue was the brutality of the way that I would deliver it, right? So they could accept the truth, but they couldn't always accept how I delivered that truth. So that's when I really started working on, how can I be honest with people and also try to deliver it in a way that's loving, in a way that they can receive it. And that's what I started to work on over the years. And it really helped me tremendously with being able to tell people the truth, but just changing how I express that truth. And I found that people can, they accept that honesty much easier when you serve it with a little sugar or a little honey, rather than giving it to them straight with no chaser. They appreciate that little bit of honey and sugar that we can often serve with the truth. Like I say, rather than just giving it to them bitter, giving it to them raw. So just for instance, let's say someone is, they invite you to dinner, and I've had this happen before, truly, and a friend invites me over for dinner, and the meal is like less than what I would desire, right? Now, I could easily say to them, oh my gosh, that was horrible. Like, what did you do to that? What happened? Why, how did you mess this up? Right. and they could feel hurt, and they could feel like, what, like, they could have put all this work into this meal, and all this love and into this meal, and I could say something like that was horrible. I wouldn't even serve that to my dog. Right now, that's brutal, honest truth. But that doesn't go over very well, right? And needless to say, I'm not going to be invited over for dinner anymore, nor will they probably be my friend anymore because they don't like the way I delivered the truth. However, I can say, man, I appreciate you inviting me over so much. I appreciate the meal, you taking the time to fix this meal, for thinking about me and all this stuff. But, can you tell me, like, was it a challenge for you to fix this meal, or were you struggling, or is this an easy, quick, meal for you, or whatever they respond with? You can say, maybe you can just make a suggestion of how to make it better. It's like, oh, I've made this before. And, I often notice that when I use a little less salt, it brings out the flavor more. Right. So that's just another way of letting them know that it's a little too salty. Right. Or maybe it was overcooked, and you can give them a suggestion and say, oh, I find that this comes out much juicier, or it stays more moist when I cook it actually a little less. You say, oh, how long did you cook it? Oh, I find, and they'll say, oh, I cooked it for, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour, 2 hours, whatever. And let them know, oh, I find that if I cook it about 30 minutes less, that it stays nice and juicy and it tastes just as good, right? So it's a way to tell them that it was less than desirable, but also give them a suggestion as to how to make it better. And that tends to go over much better rather than saying that was the worst meal I have ever had. Please don't ever cook that for me or again or anyone else, right? Because you did terrible at that. So, honesty delivered with a little honey, right? We're showing appreciation. We're acknowledging what they did. And we're also letting them know how they can make it a little bit better without telling them that it was, horrible, that they did a horrible job. And then you can stay friends. So this is just like, one way that you can do it. So let's do another one. Let's say we're dealing with somebody who is a constant complainer, because I have people like this in my life too, right? They're constantly complaining. They're constantly griping about this, that, and the other. And often we don't like to be around them because they're constantly complaining about people or talking about people, or, they're just negative constantly all the time. Now we could, be brutally honest with the person and say, I am sick and tired of your constant negativity. Like you are just bitter. You are horrible to be around. This is why I don't like being around you. This is why I don't come over. This is why I quit calling you. This is why I quit talking to you, because you get on my nerves. You talk ugly to people. You talk ugly about people, and you just have an ugly personality, right? Now that's one way. That might be what we would like to say. And that might be very true. Good morning, East Dad. How are you this morning? Good to see you. Welcome. Welcome. I appreciate you being here. Please hit the like button as you come in. Thank you so much. So we're talking about just some different examples of how we can be honest with people without, hurting their feelings. So that was one way, right? We can tell them you have an ugly personality. You are, horrible to be around. That's why nobody likes being around you. This is why I don't want to be around you, and that obviously is not going to go over very well. So what we can do is say something like, I struggle with people too, different things that they do. I struggle to understand why people do some of the things that they do. But what I find is that when I focus less on what irritates me about them and try to focus more on the things that I find that are good about them or pleasing about them, then I can begin to appreciate who they are a lot better. And I don't have to waste my valuable energy on being negative or talking ugly about them, nor do I take that energy and bring that negative energy into my other conversations. So I don't want to, think the things that I don't like, if it makes me feel negative and upset, I don't want to bring that energy to my next conversation. So I try to focus on what's good about people, or maybe I try to spend less time with them, right? So because I don't want to spread this negative energy. I want to be positive. I want to have pleasing conversations. I let that stuff go. I've learned to let that kind of stuff go so that I can so that negative energy, those things that I don't like about them, don't turn me into a negative person as well, a complaining person. So we're letting them know that this is what you're doing, right? We're making them aware of what they're doing. And then we're also letting them know how we deal with it, right? So that they can maybe hopefully get the hint and deal with it themselves. And quit talking about it themselves. A lot of times people don't know how they are because no one brings awareness to them about it. And so if you want to we can find ways to bring awareness to people about, how they are and what they're doing, but we have to try to do it in a loving way. And so that they know, and I often find that one of the best methods is to sort of align yourself with them. Like, hey, you're not the only one that struggles with that. I've struggled with that too, but here's how I deal with it. And that tends to help people overcome rather than making it look like judgment, like we're just judging the person. Like, you always do this, or I'm sick and tired of you doing that, or, you never have nothing nice to say about anybody. Rather than judging them, let them know, hey, I felt those struggles too about people. And I've struggled with, different things that people do, different things that people say, but I realize that people are going to be people. And the less I focus on the things that I don't like about them and try to focus on things that I can appreciate about them, then I find that I get along better and I don't have to carry that negative energy in me all the time. And it doesn't end up in my conversations, right? So these are just some different things that we can do to, be honest with people without being brutal about it. Okay. Good morning, Daphne. How are you? I love you too. I love you too. Welcome. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. Please smash that like button as you come in and greet everyone. And we're just talking about honesty this morning, right? How honest can we be? So, there's different ways. You try to find ways to allow yourself to be honest without being brutal about it. So here's some things that we should do to help ourselves be more honest. If you struggle with being honest with people, here's some things that I want you to focus on. Number one, know yourself. Know yourself. It's amazing how people don't know themselves, how many people don't know themselves. When you keep the lines of communication open in your relationship with who you are, what you like, what you don't like, what you can and cannot do, what you tolerate well, what you don't tolerate well. When we're not committing ourselves to doing things that we know that we can't do, or doing things that we know that we don't like, we're not being honest, right? When we're just living our lives for other people, then because we want them to be happy, or we want them to like us, or we want them to be pleased with who we are, or we want them to be accepting of us, then we're not being honest. We're not being honest. Hey, thanks. How are you? Good morning. Thanks. Good to see you. Welcome, welcome. Daphne says, well, I learned the hard way, a little bit more tender. I have been harsh. I have too. I absolutely have too. And you came in a little later, but I definitely admitted that myself. I used to always give, the brutal, honest truth, and that just didn't always go over so well. And so I wanted to maintain my friendships, but yet I wanted to maintain being honest. I wanted to maintain who I was as a person. And I wanted to be honest with the people who I was with, because it's just a part of who I am, right? I don't do well with lies. So I had to find a way to be honest with people. So I had to learn how to deliver it in a way that they could receive it better. So, being honest about who you are, being honest about as a person helps keep honesty in the relationship. It's okay to tell a person that, oh, I don't like hanging out in these kind of places, or I don't care to hang around with these types of people, or, maybe this is not a type of, if you're doing things and going places and, constantly compromising who you are as a person just to be with another person, then you're not building a relationship on honesty. So, it's important that you stay true to who you are in a relationship so that you're not wasting life. You're not wasting, the relationship. You want to build relationships built on integrity. You want to build relationships built on trust and honesty. You want authentic relationships, right? How often do we see people hanging around? People like, why do you hang around those people? Like they're nothing like you, or you're nothing like them. And yet we compromise who we are as people, as individuals to, hang out with certain people for whatever reasons. And so that's a way that we're not honest. That's a way that we're not honest in our relationship. So definitely work on being true to yourself in the relationship, and don't compromise who you are in the relationship just to please others. If it doesn't agree with them, and if it doesn't agree with the relationship, well, then maybe that's something that y'all won't do together. I mean, I have multiple friends that I'm really, really good friends with, and there are certain things that I do with some of them, and there's certain things that I do with others of them, simply because maybe I don't like certain things that they do, or I don't like certain places that they go. I'm perfectly cool with them going. I accept who they are, and what they want to do, and all that. But they know not to ask me, right, to go to those places or to do those particular things, right, because they know that I don't like it. So, and they're accepting of who I am with that, and that's the way that we keep honesty and integrity in our relationships. Create a safe space for honesty. Keep judgment. And I know this is hard, and I had to work on this myself. Try to keep your reactions and your judgment under control when people are being honest. Okay. Because that's what helps create a safe space. Now, what they may be saying to you may be breaking your heart. It may be extremely hard to accept or take in, but really try to keep your reactions at a steady level so that they will continue to be honest with you. And this is just a way to create a safe space for honesty. Because if we react immediately and intensely and harshly about people being honest with us, they will immediately begin to shut down and back away. And then we've built a barrier to where they will no longer be honest with us. And that's not what we want. If you want the honesty, right? So we have to create a safe space in mind. And we have to keep in mind that at some point in our life, 9 times out of 10, we've been where that person has been. We've had to be honest about some things that was hard for us to be honest with. And just put yourself in that position of remembering how you felt when you were stressed and worried about how this person was going to take in this information, how they were going to respond to it or even react to it. So try in every way possible to control, your emotions and your judgment. Take it in if you have to be quiet. And then once they've said the things that they've needed to say, is that, ask them, is that all of it? And be honest. What you're telling me is hurtful to me. I'm having a really hard time taking this in. I'm struggling with this. And so I need you to give me some time, or allow me some time to be able to take this in, wrap my head around it, work through it, process it. I may have to come back to you with some questions, but right now I'm going to need some time. Right. And it's okay. So it's okay to be honest, to let them know how it's making you feel, but try not to have those extreme reactions about it. Right. So where we're throwing things, or, cussing the person out, or just whatever the situation is, right? We know how we can be. We know how we can be. So, yes, I don't go. Yeah, Vern says she doesn't go when people. Yeah, my friends can be going to eat sushi and they know I'm not going to go because I'm like, I don't like sushi. It could be something literally that simple. But if it's an environment or something that I don't like, I'm honest with them. I love y'all. I can hang out with y'all another time. Y'all let me know when y'all going somewhere else and I'll join you, So it literally can be something just that simple. Or it could be extreme, right? It can be extreme, something bigger. But whatever it is, be honest with who you are. And let the person know that you appreciate their honesty, right? Let them know that you appreciate their honesty. Like I say, people rather hear the truth than rather hear a lie. So these are just 3 ways that you can work on, keeping honesty in your life, knowing yourself, and creating a safe space for honesty. If you work on just those 2 main things, then you will definitely, build a sense of trust and a sense of safety around honesty in your relationships, and you will have better, true, authentic relationships. So people can't always take in information like the way we can take it in. So we can't assume that how we would want to hear it is how they want to hear it. And as long as we can think about uh, how we can deliver something with soft gloves or a little sugar coated, right? Not lying about it, but just giving it to them with a little ease. Let them know I appreciate it. But this is how I feel about this, and this is what I would like to see happen, to see, or like for us to work through, if at all possible, you know. And are you willing to do that? Are you willing to work through this? So these are just some of the ways that we can keep a sense of honesty in our relationships. Daphne says, "Oh no, I don't uh, throw and curse. I'm usually the one that they get mad because I'm too blunt." Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm the same way. I can get very blunt and brutally honest, and that doesn't, like I say, that doesn't go over well. So, and I will let people know. And this is another technique that I use that lets people know that I am working to be nice here. To be honest but loving. I will slow my conversation down, because I want people to know that I'm really working on finding the right words to say to them, so that they know that I'm intentionally trying not to hurt their feelings. So I find that if I slow the conversation down and I say, look, I need to be honest with you, or I need to say this to you, and it may not be what you want to hear, but I'm going to try to give it to you in the most loving way possible, right? So that just right up front, I'm letting them know my intention. So hopefully they'll be less offended by my words. So if they know that my intention is to stay in good relationships, right? I'm trying to stay in good relationship with you. I'm trying to be honest with you, and I'm about to say some things that may not, feel like they're loving. But this is why I need to say them, or this is why I think it's important for you to hear them, or this is why I think we need to talk about this. And then I'll go ahead and say what I need to say. So I sort of set the stage for what I need to say, so that instead of just blurting something out that can feel like a dagger in their heart. So that way they know, just even if you're struggling with still how to say it, just set the stage for it. Just set the stage to prepare them to hear what you're about to say. And then that also tends to go over well. So, there's lots of things you can do as long as you're intentional about it. As long as your intentions are good and you let them know that, and you express your intentions, people tend to accept it a lot better. They tend to accept it a lot better. So there's lots that we can do. You just have to be willing to try and willing to put in the work and the effort. Relationships are work, relationships are effort. But if they're worth you being in, if they're worth being in relationships with, you'll be willing to put in the work. You'll be willing to put in the work. So, don't give up. Keep trying, keep working on being a better you, because the more people can expect from you, who you are, then the easier it is for them to deal with you and accept you. We have a much harder time dealing with people who we don't know what to expect from them, because one way they're this way, one day they're this way, another day they're that way, right? And they're back and forth, and we're constantly trying to figure out, well, who are they really? So that's why it's real important to know yourself and to be honest with other people about who you are. So that way they know how to interact with you. And that keeps a sense of honesty in the relationship. They'll say, oh, this is a person, yeah, she's not into that, or he's not, that's not something that he does, or, and they'll accept that about you. And then you don't have to try to be something that you don't want to be, or do things that you don't want to do, because you're honest with people. So, and then you can live your life more authentically and with more integrity, and it just goes over so much better. All right. So I appreciate you all being here. I got to get ready to head off to work. I'm going to say a quick prayer, and then we are going to head out. Love and light, Burns. Love and light. I love you so much. All right, Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for your love, your grace. Thank you for your mercy in our lives. Father, thank you for always being honest with us. And help us to learn how to be honest with others. Help us to realize that we don't have to be anything that we don't want to be. We don't have to do things we don't want to do. We don't have to say the things that we don't want to say. And that honesty, truthfully, honestly goes over much better than when we lie. Honesty is is always the best way. So teach us how to be lovingly honest with people so that they can accept and receive the things that we say, so that we can have more authentic relationships with people, and that our words can be received rather than rejected in our relationships. Father, touch each person in this chat. Give them the strength and the courage to be honest with the people that they need to be honest with, to say the things that they need to say in a loving way. Set the stage, prepare the environment for everything to happen the way it needs to, so that they can, have honesty and trust and put love and respect back into their relationships, back into their marriages, whether it's someone they live with, someone they work with, or someone who's just a good friend. Create the space for honesty so that they can, have healthy, authentic, beautiful relationships. We love you. We thank you. These things I ask in your son, Jesus' name. Amen. All right. I will see you all Friday. I'll be back here live on Friday. I'll have a tip coming out tomorrow. And you all have a beautiful week, a beautiful rest of your day. And you all take care. Be the light.